Hello, it's Ren Presents time. I'm your host, Ren, and today we continue with the House of Bloodstein, Mentralysis, Part 2, Chapter 10, Hyper Staff. And last week, we saw Kay exploring the wondrous depths of 1000 Cara Hill Park gift shop, where he met the goddess Aetha, and she gave him the knowledge in exchange for something that she wants that she hasn't really specified. Well, I guess we'll find out later what it is she wants, but gave him the process of how Queen Gome is able to swap parts, and that's key to restoring Sam, Magistrate Kylos, her son, and others who are on ice on the Gold Coast of HOBM. Using this knowledge and with a donated plant, courtesy of Aetha, he was able to repair the grievously wounded Laika, extracting over 70 bullets and various pieces of shrapnel from her body, restoring all her wounds, and basically bringing her back from the brink of death. Now, fully healed and ready to go, Kay, Laika, and King, who was recovered in the previous chapter, are heading back to Castle Blanchford to have a round 2 with the Jones. We are pretty much dead center in the book. We are right in the middle. This is a longish chapter. It's 26 pages, so I'm just gonna get right to it. So let's proceed. Part 2, Chapter 10, Hyper Staff. As they move through the long node toward the mystery library, King gave Kay a full report. The Jones have largely quit Castle Blanchford, and Cana for that matter, and are on their way back to Baz. They have helped themselves to some of the more exotic artifacts lying about Castle Blanchford, including the machine, the malice mirror, and they have Queen Gome herself with them under their protection. The Jones brought in a Gilead heavy earth mover and scooped up the machine out of the grove, silver tech defenses and all. They still cannot get past the silver tech defenses around it, and should they succeed, they will find the machine inert, as I have the powering stone hidden. That should foil them for some time to come. Well, that's something at least. All right. So here are our objectives. Recover the cryo chest containing the stolen parts, capture Queen Gome, and recover all items stolen from Castle Blanchford, including the machine, or ensure its disuse. And revenge on Jones, Laika added. If we succeed in our plans, then the natural outcome will be the downfall of the Jones. The Jones have proved themselves entirely complicit with Queen Gome, the enemy, to the point of committing mayhem and murder within the walls of a sovereign great house. Laika hates Jones, she said with a slight growl as she popped in more candy. Our final objective is the enemy herself. We must secure Queen Gome and return her to the Gold Coast of HOBM, where she may give up the part she stole from Sam and Sarah and be fitted with the Mentralysis artifacts. How are you doing for ammunition, Laika? Kay asked. Lag's near empty. 37 rounds remaining. We'll see what we've got in the castle armory. We should be able to get you rearmed, provided the Jones haven't sacked it. Following King, they plunged deep into the node, and it was a surprisingly long walk. They came to the intersection. Aetha's statue was still there. The book she had been carrying was gone. In its place was a large earthen jar of a distinctly orange color. The jar was unmistakable. It was a facsimile of Sam's Anuian jar, whose completion would require Kay to pay up to Aetha. King perched on the jar. This intersection links all of Cara Hill's temples. We just came from his 1000 Park Central store. Ahead is the Mystery Library in Castle Blanchford. To our left is a passage leading to an odd plain. It is very small, only a few miles in length before it ends. It seems to be fully enclosed. This is the only entrance or exit. Kay gazed down the corridor and sighted. He saw the corridor end, opening up in what looked like a bluff overlooking a lovely beach. As King said, it only went on for a few miles before it doubled back on itself, ending up where it started. It's Kara Hill's porch, a place where one can be alone with one's thoughts. To the right is the final place. Kay looked. To the right of the intersection was the dank and gloomy patch of darkness, lurking with wet stone and rusty metal, nestled in layers of darkness that he had seen and recoiled from before. It had a forlorn and lonely feel to it. Laika gazed down the corridor and stepped back. "Bad enchantment," she said. "What is that?" he asked. "Something about that area gives me pause." "Cathedral of bone and wire," King replied. "You saw me there. It is one of Kara Hill's temples, certain enough. And it is not a pleasant place. All angry things are welcome there. I waited in the darkness for you to summon me." Kay contemplated that for a moment. He couldn't picture darkness and Carahill in the same thought. How is this dark gulf a place Carahill would reside? I can imagine a nice beach being someplace Carahill would like. But this? "There is darkness in us all," King replied. "Come," Laika said, tugging on Kay's sleeve. "Jones await." They continued on, leaving the passage to the secluded beach of Carahill's porch and to the Cathedral of Bone and Wire behind. Soon, Kay spied a point of light in the far distance which eventually grew into the now familiar passes of the Mystery Library. The room was heavily damaged by the Jones as they traipsed back and forth with their battle units. Shelving was knocked over, books lay everywhere, and the venerable Durst table was on its side. Kay struggled to set it back up on its legs. Laika assisted, and it came over easily. "Sarah's not going to be happy," Kay said. "She loves this place." "I do too." He checked the bobby box, hoping to contact Sarah, but the Jones had crushed it underfoot, destroying the receiver within. For now, the three of them were on their own in the castle. They went back out to the main area of the library, seeing it in ruins. Kay immediately noticed the same odd, perfumey scent hanging in the air that he had smelled previously during the battle. The smell crawled far up his nose and festered in his sinuses like a wet rag. "Lord Blanchford, cover your nose," King said. "Why? That scent is pollen from the Horvath creeper. It will foul your use of gifts." Kay covered his nose and mouth. Laika reached into the bag and gave him a Carahill shirt to breathe into. "Laika and Bird, get rid of Creeper," she said. Laika and King went ahead. Kay hung back and waited a few minutes. He sighted ahead to see what they were doing. There were numerous potted vines scattered about the library, left by the Jones as they departed. Many had toppled over, spilling black, loamy dirt onto the carpet. Yet another fightable offense in Sarah's book. Each bore a large single white flower with a meaty pollen stalk. Laika and King worked together, picking up the plants and throwing them out the window. As Kay sighted, the heavy floral perfume laced with pollen got into his nose despite the shirt he was breathing into to filter it out. It was a good smell at first whiff, but grew heavy and unpleasant very quickly. It was a smell one would never wish to experience twice. Very quickly, Kay's sight clouded and went down to nothing. His gifts were diminishing fast. He couldn't cloak any longer, and his waft was unusable as well. He went out into the main library area. "Oh, these stink," Kay commented, holding his nose. "My gifts are done." Laika grabbed the rest of the vines and sent them whizzing out. "Horvath Creeper," she said. "Plant fouls gifts." Laika heard Hospitaller speak of them. Jones used plant often. Pollen from the Horvath Creeper is a prime ingredient in the Jones anti-gift grenades, King stated. "Well, the bloody plants are gone now. Let's see what the damn Jones are up to." Kay tried to release his dark sight and look in on the distant reaches of the castle, but his sight wouldn't open. Try as he might, nothing happened. Just like before, during the battle, Kay's heart sank. "No, I can't sight." "Plant no good for gifts," Laika said. He tried to waft. Nothing happened. He tried his cloak. Failed. "Gods," he spat. "I've got nothing. All my gifts are useless. I didn't think the pollen would have a lingering effect." He clutched his head, hoping to will his gifts back into service. His brain felt numb and dormant. He could still smell the cloying perfume of the creeper charging through his nose and knocking about in his head. "Jarl Khan no need gifts. Jarl Khan strong," Laika said. offering encouragement. Glad you think so. We have no idea what's in front of us. Could be a whole legion of Jones. King, can you scout ahead, please, and give us a report? King complied and fluttered out the door. As they waited, Laika began cleaning up a little. She pushed the Durst table back into place and put fallen books back on the shelves, though she did so without the care and grace Sarah would have used. Soon King returned, fluttering through the windows. He was carrying something in his tiny silver feet. King, what's our status? Kay asked. King replied in his dry voice. I'm afraid I have grim tidings. The Jones have left a great quantity of Horvath creeper all over the castle interior. Very fresh, very potent. You may expect to have no use of your gifts any time in the near future. The Jones have largely quit the castle. However, the castle is not empty. Several staff members are drifting about the corridors. How many? 10. All are armed with knives and under the Jones' influence, ready to kill. Given what I've seen, the Jones have induced a hyper state onto the staff members. What's that? Kay asked. A hyper state's hypnosis. It supercharges the subject, imparts upon them heightened physical attributes and skills they would not ordinarily have. They will also feel no pain. Some that I saw have mutilated themselves, and you must be prepared for what you are going to see in the castle proper below. The hyper will invariably kill the subject if they are not freed from it in short order. Kay listened and ran his hand through his purple hair, worried for his staff. Laika adjusted her new black composite armor and appeared unfazed. He unsaddled his carg. Then we can't just sit here and let our staff be killed. Our staff is, as are the Scions of Blanchford Village, under our protection. They and their ancestors before them have served this castle for ages, and we have a sacred trust to keep them safe. There are usually over 100 staff members in the castle at any given time. Sarah thankfully got most of them out. Now it falls upon us to protect the rest. Laika, ready. King spoke. I located your PTVA pistol, Lord Blanchford, in the grove near the creek. He set it down on the table. Sitting there was Kay's Poltava, an enameled purple work of art. He picked it up, fully loaded. He could tell by its weight. It felt comforting to have it back. Good eye, King. Thank you. He cocked the gun and slid it into his vest pocket. They went out into the vestibule. Detritus from the Jones lay strewn about everywhere. Shell casings, cables, discarded medical assortments from the triage they performed on their wounded fellows, pools of dried blood, and so on. Our first task shall be freeing the staff from their hyperstate, and we must accomplish it with all speed. We will fight to incapacitate. We will then secure them as best we can and take the tunnels to the castle armory just in case the Jones have left any surprises for us in the grove. There, we could kit out with heavy weaponry, contact Sarah. Here's what's going to happen. Rawl is going to send in a team of hospitallers to tend to our staff, whether he likes it or not. They headed down the stairs, moving fast past 50 floors. The atrium to the tower was just below. Remember, the staff is not to be harmed. Defend yourself as best you can, but we fight to assist the staff. King, what can you do to help out? I am designed to kill, Lord Blanchford, not to engage in non-lethal interdiction. Then adjust. Figure it out. I got faith in you. No killing. No matter. Laika and Jarl-Khan, fight! Laika cried, ready to go. You too, Laika. No killing, Kay demanded. Laika offered an uncharacteristic growl in response. They reached the atrium at the base of the tower. It was frustrating for Kay not to be able to sight, to not know what was around every bend ahead of time. The Horvath creeper was a hard plant indeed. King fluttered ahead, checking for any surprises. Clear, he said. The staff was concentrated near the kitchen area. That's where we should encounter most of them. The kitchens are too small, Kay said. We need room to incapacitate them. The grand ballroom is nearby. Laika, you wait there. I will attempt to draw the staff into the open space of the ballroom where we can properly subdue them. They headed north down the main corridor. So far, they had met nobody. Here and there were potted Horvath creeper plants, pretty and festive with their huge white flowers, filling the air with their horrid perfume. "There's a ballroom, Laika. Await me there." Through the doorway was a colossal room decorated in Vith finery, large enough to berth a medium-sized starship. Laika walked in, her weapons clanking. Her 10-foot frame was dwarfed by the sheer size of the room. "Don't make a mess in there, okay?" She didn't answer. Kay and King resumed walking down the corridor toward the kitchens. He held his carg at the ready. "Alert!" King cried. A girl wandered out of a side corridor from the kitchens wearing a cheery light blue apron and a ruffled shirt of a staff member. She saw Kay and smiled. "Lord Blanchford, we've been so worried about you." She drew a curved knife from her sash. "May I prepare you some breakfast?" She attacked at a breathless run, moving straight for Kay, knife poised to kill. King hovered up and lit his sight, throwing out 2 silvery beams in the girl's direction. She evaded the beams and came in, knife flashing. She thrust and Kay countered with his carg. He pushed her knife aside and gave her a thump on the side of the head, hoping to render her unconscious. She took the blow and attacked again. Kay parried, landing a blow on her wrists, knocking her knife away. Her breast was wide open. He could easily kill her, but he allowed the moment to pass. She reached behind her apron and pulled out another knife. "May I make you some pancakes?" she asked, raising it up. She smiled the whole time, unaware of what she was doing. Kay fled down the hallway towards the ballroom, the staff girl in hot pursuit. Exhibiting incredible speed, she caught Kay from behind, tackling him, ready to stab him with her knife. She winced, dropped her knife, and slumped to the floor. There was King, hovering behind her, holding her first knife in his arrow-like beak. He let it fall. "The knife she dropped is malaked. I nicked her with it below the right shoulder." Kay stood and picked up the knife. "Well, at least that gives us an easy method to safely incapacitate the rest of the staff." He picked her up and moved her into the ballroom under Laika's watchful eye. Readying himself, he and King went to the kitchen. 9 staff members stood within. "Lord Blanchford!" came their voices in a joyful chorus. He stood there for a moment, shocked. The kitchen was a place he loved, had fond memories of, sneaking in there as a child to get a snack. The smells of baking delights and boiling syrup, the roasting meats and simmering sauces, the smiling faces of the staff, the giggles. The kitchen was a slaughterhouse dripping with blood. The staff milled about, performing the ghost of the work they normally did, going through the motions, stirring nothing, baking nothing. One had her own hand on the chopping block and was slicing it like a head of lettuce. Another was capering about with the kitchen cutlery plunged into her arms and legs like a grim butcher's block. Another had partially cooked herself in one of the stoves. They had the Jones cryo chest full of parts and were in the process of preparing the parts within for cooking. Faces, hands, feet, and other assorted parts were laid out on the cutting board, ready to be sliced into bits. What had the Jones done? What sort of game was this? Heartbreak and rage filled Kay. The staff that were able to do so brandished knives and came at Kay. Many were too weak to stand and simply crawled. Kay cut one with his malak knife and she fell. The rest pressed in, smiling, bleeding, offering to prepare food for Kay, even as they attempted to slash him. Kay and King fell back into the hallway and went into the ballroom, pursued closely by the staff, all in various stages of disfigurement. Laika was waiting. She perched high on the near wall like a giant spider. She reached out with an unbreakable grip, arms stretching, and lifted the staff high into the air. King hovered up and malaked them in turn, and they went limp. Quick as that, the battle with the staff was over. Kay returned to the kitchens and mopped up the rest. With tears in his eyes, he tended to the staff's wounds as best he could, whispering into their ears that he was their lord, and he would protect them. They then returned the staff to their beds, high up in Harper Tower. Most of the beds were empty, the bulk of the staff diverted away by Sarah. "Come, they should be safe here for now until Hospitallers arrive to tend them," Laika said. Kay didn't want to leave. "Come," Laika said again. Returning to the kitchen, Kay and Laika collected all the parts and returned them to the supercooled interior of the cryo chest. Fearing the worst, Kay inspected each one, wondering what damage had been done. A hand and a face were on a cutting board, partially diced into cubes. Kay dreaded to learn who they belonged to. Performing a quick inventory, he found Sarah's face and her hands, including the missing one Daroga had taken, Kai's parts, and her son's parts as well. He collected everything and placed them back into the cryo chest, shutting the lid with a hiss. As he puzzled over why the Jones had left the chest in the kitchens, Laika and King entered. The Jones must have left the chest here hoping I'd react and kill the staff. Every bit of this is an unforgivable outrage. As they exited the kitchen, Kay enabled the automated high-pressure steam cleaners which were run once a week to sanitize the area. He closed the door and heard the jets come to life, scouring everything with heat and steam, washing clean the gore. Pulling the chest with him, they came to the darkened hall of portraits. Hundreds of life-size portraits hung in the hall, from the floor to the lofty ceiling. "What these paintings?" Laika asked. "My ancestors, going back through the antiquity of the house. Mine and Sam's portrait hangs here as well. Come, there's a secret passage just there. We could take it to the armory." Laika stared at the portraits of the old Blanchfords, some from the beginning of the League. She pointed at one hanging high above. "Hytath," she said. "This Hytath, like Laika." Kay looked up. She was pointing at an old painting of a fierce Blanchford countess from long ago. Her painting was difficult to see in the dark. Kay had forgotten how dark the Hall of Portraits was without his sight. King shone his light on the painting. "That's Countess Mirzathorn, I think. A great matriarch in the old EX days," he said. "Mirzadan," King corrected. "Yeah, that's right, thanks. She goes back several thousand years." "Mirzadan, Hytath," Laika announced. "Eyes. Hytath eyes." One of his ancestors might have been a Hytath in disguise. Kay didn't have time to ponder that odd notion. He examined the stone wall near the portrait of Lord Sadric, his grandfather. "Somewhere here is a hidden door to the passes below, which will give us access to the Grove tunnels." He couldn't find it. Not having use of his dark sight was maddening. "King, I need your light, please." King flew in and illuminated the wall. They probed the wall, testing the stone with their hands. "We're looking for a hidden lever." Good thing Sarah wasn't here to see this. She would certainly laugh. With a good deal of searching, Kay found the lever and the door swung open. The passes below were terribly dark. King went ahead and lit the way with his sight. Kay crawled behind him, and Laika brought up the rear, her mass filling the tunnel, dragging the cryo chest behind her. "Many passages," she said, taking note of everything, filing it away into her eidetic brain. They moved northeast, safely under the grove toward the armory. They pressed on, the tunnel becoming damp as they neared the lake. Soon they went up through a hidden passage and into the castle armory, which was disguised as a Vith ruin from the outside. Weapons of many kinds were slung up on the walls, and boxes of standard ammunition were neatly shelved. It was a wonderland of weaponry. Laika wandered out into the room, taking it all in. "Look around and take what you want," Kay said. "I'm getting Sarah on the line." Kay found a bobby box. "Sarah!" he yelled. A scratchy voice replied. "It's me, Kay. What happened?" "The Jodes came at us hard. Battle units, GWs, H-Grenadiers, the works." Sarah cursed. "I didn't see anything. The Jones must have rigged our security cameras. Are you all right? How'd you get out of that?" "King, he swooped in and got us out." "King still functions?" she asked. "He is, and a good thing, too." Sarah laughed with joy. "Ah ha ha! Attaboy, King!" "Sarah, is this line secure? The Jones could be listening." "I don't know. Probably. There's no way to know for certain. This is a pretty low-tech connection, so it's hard to tell." There was a pause. "Hold on. Let's drop the line. I'll be right there." "Sarah!" No reply. The line appeared to be dead. "Alert!" King cried, hovering high into the air and lighting his sight. A figure appeared out of the dim lighting at the far end of the room. Laika dropped what she was carrying and drew her gigantic swords, ready to fight. "Hey, hey!" Sarah said, showing her hands. It's just me. Kay saw her and was elated. Sarah, where in creation did you come from? Well, Laika's hand shot out, stretched, and got Sarah by the neck, cutting her off in mid-sentence, lifting her into the air. Sarah gagged and kicked. Hello, Sarah. Did you think Laika would forget? She said, savoring the moment, bringing Sarah in close to her face. Answer, Laika! Sarah reached out and put a jolt into Laika's ear. Laika yelped and dropped her. So sorry, Toots, Sarah said, standing up. Fintron again. You have to wait another day to beat me to a pulp, if you can. Laika scowled. Jaro Khan said Laika could beat Sarah into pulp, and Laika intends to do just that. Sarah laughed. Did you tell her that, Kay? I sure did. Sarah turned to King. And where were you just now? Were you gonna let her wring my neck or what? I can see you're a heavily finducered hologram, Sarah, King replied. You are currently in no danger. Kay and King came down. Kay gave her a grand hug. So good to see you, Sarah. The staff, did you see what happened? What the Jones did to our staff is unforgivable. I saw them in their tower, Kay. Obviously, some of them didn't make it out of the castle, and you were overwhelmed by the Jones. I wish I could have been there with you. You did the right thing by them. Get raw right now and tell them I want a team of Hospitowers sent en route at once to tend to our people and clear the castle of the Jones influence. I know what he's gonna say. I don't care what he's gonna say. Get rough with him if you have to. How's Sam? Sam's good. Got her fighting pirates right now in her RDP. You know, she's a pretty sadistic little bunny rabbit when she gets pissed. She's doing things to those pirates I'd not think she'd have in her. Everybody's good except for Kai, who's in bad shape. I'll fill you in later. Kay suddenly realized something. How are you here in holographic form? Yes, Laika growled. How is Sarah here? Laika wants real Sarah, not holographic Sarah. Sarah grinned. How? Get kitted out and come outside when you're ready. You'll see. I'll be waiting. She waved Laika off and vanished. They continued loading out. Seeing Sarah energized Kay, he was certain the staff would soon receive the medical help they needed for their condition. Now he could press on, though he was worried about Kai. You've got 4 lags, right, Laika? He asked. She nodded. Lags are okay, but you probably want something with a bit more punch. Let's see. He wandered around, seeing many types of weapons. The famous Blanchford PTVA was not present, as Lord Sadric had disposed of the bulk of them. Also, the Grenville 40 series was not present, as the Blanchfords would not carry weapons produced by their one-time rivals. What do you suggest, King? Kay asked, genuinely perplexed. I suggest a weapon system with more explosive power. I suggest the Dare D3-D4 combat rifle. It fires a potent, hardened dart, completely armor-piercing and frangible, which should play havoc with the Jones equipment. Kay pulled a DD rifle off the wall and presented it to Laika. Here, Laika, what do you think? She looked at the weapon with wonder. Is Jaro Khan offering this weapon to Laika? I am. It's a little heavy, but I'm certain you can manage. Laika has no weapons. All belong to Hlantha. Not this one. This DD belongs to Laika, if you want it. She stood there for a moment, staring at the rifle. Go on, take it, Kay said. She took it from him. What do you think? He asked. Well made. Not heavy. Laika very happy. Not heavy, huh? We'll see about that once we get loaded. Kay searched around and found a bulbous 200 dart drum. I suggest a loadout of Brindisite darts, as they will create the most damage, King said as Kay worked. 200 Brindisite darts will be extremely heavy. I am certain Laika will be able to manage. Kay loaded the drum and lugged it around, having issues with its weight. Laika, this weighs over 40 pounds. That's why the DDs fell out of favor, because they were so heavy. Loaded out with a drum like this, it's supposed to be mounted. What do you think? She took the drum like it was nothing and loaded it onto the rifle. She waved it around with one hand. Not heavy, she said. She leveled it to her eye and gazed through the sights. Good feel. Laika will kill many Jones with rifle. Kay found a bandolier holster and fitted it across Laika's shoulder. She holstered the DD with approval. Kay took a few boxes of ammunition for his Poltava. Laika, you want to replace any of your lags? Help yourself. Laika rummaged around the armory, was apparently happy with her unglamorous and battered but reliable lags. She reloaded them and filled the pockets of her composite armor with extra magazines. Kitted out, they exited the armory into the sunshine of the grove. Sarah was sitting on a stump nearby. "Took you guys long enough," she said. "We're fully stocked up," Kay replied. "So, Sarah, how are we seeing you here?" "It's coming now. Look." Flying over the treetops, making a horrendous racket, came a gangly, singularly ugly fixed undercarriage transport ship studded with 4 elephantine industrial power units in vectored shrouds. It was painted a dinged-up bright yellow. "That's how I'm doing it," Sarah announced happily. "This baby's a surplus to Brook 444 hauler that I got for cheap, way cheap. I used some of the funds Gome tried to pull out of the Blanchford coffers. I calmed the yard up and bought her done deal. It's perfect, with those 4 big Grenville mass drivers generating 16 megawatts each. It oozes power." The ship came down the clearing with a clank of gangly linkages, and the hatch slowly opened. "First thing after I bought it, I had it delivered to a chop shop on Brinville and had it butt-loaded with holographic emitters. With these 4 engines online, I've got a 1,400-mile range circular all day long. When they got the holomitters online and I appeared out of nowhere, those boys dropped their lunches. You should have seen it. It was great." Laika scoffed. "Sarah buys ugly ship," she said. "Sarah's ugly face scares mechanics." "Yeah, toots. She doesn't look like much, but she's got it where it counts. I call her the Ultra. Cool, huh? I also loaded her out with a full spread of Monties." "Monties?" Kay asked. "You mean missiles? You loaded the hauler out with missiles? That's illegal." "So? I won't tell if you won't. I slipped the guys at the chop shop a little extra and they installed them no problem. You need something illegal installed on your ship? They can make it happen for you on Brinville. I even got surface mounts in case we want to go surface to air. Come on, let's get on board. I've got the factories in the village emitting a sensor lock over the grove right now, just in case the Jones are trying to monitor us. It won't last forever, so let's get a move on." Laika shook her head. "No need Sarah's ugly ship. Have Venera's ship waiting, much faster." "Yeah, and the Jones will spot you coming the moment you blast off. Remember, I'm not dealing with a bunch of pirates or Zaffins here. The Jones are plugged into the sky and have their eyes on everything. This innocuous vessel is the way to go." They piled in. The interior was functional and clean, though it smelled faintly of grease and old oil. There were several crew cabins in the rear, along with a good functional cargo hold. Laika set the cryo chest down. The hatch closed, and Sarah flopped into the pilot's chair. A few moments later, the big Grenvilles growled, and the ship lifted off, lumbering nice and smooth over the castle and south into the Gaston Way. Laika stood next to the pilot's chair, crowding Sarah's space. "Give me some room, right? We're on our way to Baz. Should take about 17 hours to get there. I've even got it a fake manifest and bogus flight plan filed, so we look totally legit. If the Jones snoop us over, they'll never know it's us." Kay took a peek at the cargo bay. It was fully stocked with hermetic containers, had a good-sized industrial winch. "Does a winch work, Sarah?" "Of course it works. Everything works on this ship. We'll be needing it to get some of our stuff back once we take the Jones down." Kay selected a cabin. Laika stood by the pilot's chair, observing the process, memorizing the layout of the gauges and dials. Kay settled onto the co-pilot's chair and quietly watched. King took Laika's sacks of things from Carahill's store and placed them on the bed in a nearby cabin. "Give me a few minutes and I'll get Raw on the line," Sarah said. The Ultra broke orbit a short time later and eased into the shipping lanes towards Baz, moving at a leisurely rate of speed. Several other haulers came and formed up with them. A standard practice, for haul ships always traveled in numbers in case any found themselves needing assistance. Sarah locked the helm and got up out of the chair. Laika ready to flop down into the seat. Keep your big butt out of there, sister," Sarah said. Laika grumbled some sort of curse and came away. There was a table mounted near the hold, complete with monitors and chairs. Sarah sat down cross-legged as usual and Kay joined her. Laika stood next to Kay, her hands on her swords, guarding him. "So then," Sarah said, "let me get Rawl out of bed here. It's only 2 bells on HOBM right now, so it's good and dark." Sarah waved her hand and a monitor came to life. The image of a fine bedroom appeared. Someone peacefully slept, arms encircled under a thick pillow. "Watch this," Sarah announced. Several jolts of bluish light danced across the room, and the sleeping person sprang out of the bed with a cry. "Out of bed, Rawl," Sarah yelled. "We got some action items for you to take care of. Can't wait. Come on, chop chop." Rawl, pajama-clad, sat by his bed and rubbed his eyes. He stood and walked out of the hollow screen's eye. "Hey, where are you going?" Sarah demanded. "Let's give him a moment of privacy, Sarah, please," Kay said. Laika excused herself and went to her cabin. A few minutes later, she emerged, bootless, her weapons belt and composite armor removed, wearing a light blue shirt from Carahill's store. His smiling face was stamped on the breast. She held several bags of candy. "You look ridiculous in that," Sarah remarked. "Quiet, Sarah. Laika not care. Laika comfortable," she said, seating herself next to Kay. "Where'd you get all that stuff?" Sarah asked. "Carahill's store at Xandar," Kay answered. "Carahill's what?" "It's a long story, Sarah. I'll tell you later." She gazed at the bags. "Is that candy?" "It is, Sarah. While we wait for Rawl, what is everyone's current status?" Kay asked. "Everybody's fine except for Kai, and she's not good." "Did the Hospitallers receive the items I sent over?" Sarah paused. "One sec, let me check." They received an earthen pot with a crappy weed in it that they were going to pitch, and a tankard of heavy water that they're analyzing. Is that what you're talking about? Kay was alarmed. "Yes! Do not let them throw that plant away, Sarah. That plant is the key to Gome's fresh-dealing techniques. Sarah, you tell Rawl to be careful with that crappy weed. They also need to quit analyzing and testing and start doing for a change." Okay, I'll tell him. You know, he's not a bad fellow, really, Rawl. "I thought you two were going to have words." "We did have words. I barged right into his terminal and we came to a nice understanding. I sort of like him now. He knows what he's doing with this Mentralysis stuff, that's for sure. He needs to loosen up a little, but other than that..." Laika tore open a bag of candy and popped a handful into her mouth. She offered some to Kay. "Oh, thank you," he said. "Must eat," she insisted. "It's just candy, Laika. It's not really food." "Are those jawbreakers?" Sarah asked. "Probably." Sarah appeared a little dejected. "You know, one thing I didn't program into this Vintron was Fenducers for taste, so I can't taste anything right now. What flavor are those jawbreakers?" "Mixed fruit, I believe," Kay said. Laika took a colorful handful and showed them to Sarah. "Oh, poor Sarah cannot taste. Such a pity." She popped them into her mouth and crunched away. "Good! You want me to shock you again, don't you? When you guys get me out of the icebox, you're going to have to show me this cool Carahill store. I want to see it for myself." As they waited for Rawl, Kay noticed Sarah's blue ponytail seemed to be slightly flowing and twisting about, as if in an ethereal wind. Rather otherworldly enhancement to her otherwise perfectly convincing hologram that she probably couldn't resist adding. "Rawl's ready. Let me get him. Oh, one thing. If he starts getting uppity, let me do the talking, okay? I know how to deal with this guy." She opened the monitor and Rawl appeared, fully dressed in his Hospitaller uniform, conservative and quiet-mannered as before. "Hi, Rawl." "We're all here," Sarah said. "Hello, Sarah," he replied. "Hey, it's Ultra Sarah, Rawl. We discussed this, remember? You said you'd call me Ultra Sarah." Rawl sighed. Yes, of course. "And might I add, Ultra Sarah, if you ever shock me out of bed again, I'll personally go down to the infirmary, pull your blank, naked body out of the ready capsule and slap it silly. Understand?" "Now you're talking," Sarah cried. "Get rough with me. Don't take my crap." Rawl turned his attention to Kay. "Lord Blanchford, we received the items you sent to our facility here on HOBM. How did you manage that?" "Not relevant at this time. Take great care with those items. They are of critical importance, especially the plant." We managed to recover a cryo chest with all the stolen pieces except for Seb's parts and Sarah's eyes. Some of the parts have been damaged. He turned to Laika. Laika, do you mind? She put down her bag of candy and retrieved the cryo chest from the hold. Kay opened the lid and a bluish cloud of condensed mist drifted out. Sarah leaned over and looked in. There were the stolen parts, a ghoulish display of faces, hands, feet, breasts, and other workings. Sarah reached in and pulled her own face out. It hung there in her hands like a latex mask draped in blue hair. Sarah's holographic expression was at once horrified and morbidly enthralled. Sarah loved such things, and holding her own face in her holographic hands only added to her wonderment. So this is my face, huh? Wow! I am gorgeous! She looked it over with a critical eye. Do you think my hair is bluer in the back than in the front? I didn't know I had a mole there. She presented her face to the monitor. What do you think, Rawl? Aren't I cute? He shuffled in his seat. You have a fine profile, Ultra Sarah. Oh, Sarah laughed. Now you're flirting with me. Did you recover these parts from the Jones? Rawl asked. No, from our staff. The Jones vacated the castle and left the chest behind. Rawl seemed perplexed for a moment. Odd that they would leave it there. Well, in any event, we shall want them back on HOBM as quickly as possible for proper inventorying and preservation. We can send a ship to fetch them. Not a good idea, Rawl, Sarah said, still admiring her limp face, shaking it a little. The Jones will finger us. We need to remain hidden. Kay had a thought. Sarah, I saw hermetic containers in the hold. Are they functional? Sure they are. Good. King, how quickly can you make the trip to HOBM from our current position? 18.5 hours, Kanan, he replied. That will do. I'm thinking we boxed up the chest in one of the containers and have King fly it to HOBM. He's small and fast. The Jones won't notice, and if he's set upon, he can defend himself. That's a good idea, Sarah agreed. Rawl, we're sending the stuff to you, and be careful with my face, okay? Laika went to the hold and returned carrying a heavy hermetic container specifically designed to withstand the rigors of space. She set it down, and Sarah opened the lid with an airtight hiss. They returned all the parts to the cryo chest, Sarah lovingly placing her face within. Try to resist the urge to kiss me, Rawl, at least until I can kiss back, okay? Rawl didn't respond. Some of the parts have been greatly damaged, Kay added. Leave that to us. As long as we have most of the material and it's still viable, we can repair them, Rawl assured. They sealed the chest and Laika hauled it into the hermetic container. Sarah closed the container and pressurized it. Ready, King? Kay asked. He fluttered up from his perch and followed Laika to the airlock. Safe journey, King. You are authorized to use whatever force is necessary to complete your mission. Speed well, Kay said. Moments later, the door closed and King and the container were released into space. Kay marveled as the tiny King, dwarfed by the container, gripped it with his Silvertech feet and was gone in a streak. They returned to the holocone. Kay seated himself and spoke. The cryo chest is on its way. It should be there tomorrow afternoon. Let us turn our attention to Magistrate Kylos. Sarah has informed me of her precarious situation, and I would like her restored to full health as soon as possible. Rawl raised his eyebrows. Pardon, sir? How are we going to do that? I would not advise surgery to reattach her parts. The significant internal restructuring of her body would make that impossible without disfiguring and possibly killing her. Surgery? No, use the items I sent. The items you sent, Rawl repeated. We received a potted fibrous plant of a highly toxic nature and a tankard of slightly heavy water. What import are they? What import? They are how GOM is stealing parts, using the water and the dust from the plant. I've seen the process in action, sure enough. Elaborate, please. The plant, though it looks like a mere weed, is pure ethelberry. The water is from some place called Salonme. Rawl made a few notes. Ethelberry, I see, and the water is from Salonme, you say? Salonme is a spring located on Trimble in Zaffin space. The water is said to possess remarkable qualities. It does have remarkable qualities. I have been made privy to Gobe's secret. The water, in conjunction with the pollen from the plant, is the secret to Gobe's technique. We know, of course, of the various legends from League and Zaffin worlds surrounding the magical substance called Ethelberry. We know the fanciful stories and so forth. We have quested for such a substance in the past. The Knickerboms performed an investigation into it, I believe. However, we have never been able to successfully secure any specimens. We therefore believe Ethelberry to be a substance of myth and nothing more. Where did you acquire this sample from, please? I'm assuming you're not a botanist by trade. You assume correct. It was given to me by a notable source, and I have witnessed it in operation. Laika was brought from the brink of death with it. And who performed this healing? I did. With the Ethelberry and the water, I was able to restore her to full health, and I'm no hospitaller. Hytath, is this true? Laika crunched away on her jawbreakers and didn't answer. Ultra Sarah, would you please scan the Hytath? Rawls asked. Sarah stood and put her hands on Laika's shoulders. Laika reacted and pushed her away. Hold still, toots, will you? Sarah said. Do not touch Laika's shirt. Laika hates Sarah. Stop it. Just pretend I'm Kay, all right. I need to scan you. Quit fidgeting. Laika pulled away and Sarah followed, the two rolling around on the floor with Sarah all over her. Laika shrieked and made a fuss, trying to seize Sarah's holographic form and throttle it. Finally, Sarah jumped off, leaving Laika scowling. Well, damn, that was harder than it needed to be, Sarah said. Laika, not forget, she spat, sitting up. Rawl checked his screens. The Fendusa data are coming in. Here we are. I'm not scanning any trace of injury on the Hytath. Were the Hytath grievously wounded? I should see traces of it, and I see none. Therefore, she has not been injured recently. She had more Jode's bullets in her than I could count, along with a hole in her chest large enough for me to put my arm in. The Ethelberry works marvels. Flawless healing. Wait, Sarah cried. You got it from Carahil, right? In his store? Who is Carahil? Rawl asked. He's a source we can trust, Sarah said. But what are his tisk, Rawl? Trust me, okay? Though Rawl was trying to hide it, he was clearly astounded. Then we shall perform analysis at once. No, the time for analysis is over. The time to act is now, Kay said, feeling impatient. Sarah has told me Magistrate Kylos cannot hold out much longer, and her sanity and possibly her life are at stake. Use the water and the dust, and save her the moment King arrives with the cryo chest. Unfortunately, there is only enough dust for one person at this time, so use it on Kai. Rawl made some notes. Magistrate Kylos is in a level 3 insanity curve. She will awaken a mindless vegetable. So, how's that any different than normal? Just do it, Rawl, Sarah said. Can we acquire more materials from this Carahil person, perhaps? Rawl asked. We must test and prove this. We do not perform procedures on patients without knowing precisely what we're doing. We're not Zaffin Kabbalists. No, though I have been informed where a quantity of lesser dust is available. Kai doesn't have the time. She needs to be out of that capsule immediately. You keep mentioning the need to add to your knowledge, so now's a fine time for it. Rawl made notes. I dislike sounding grim. However, I would not advise using the materials on Magistrate Kylos, Rawl said. Why not? As I said, because her sanity is probably already lost. Her beta and theta waves show signs of massive degradation. She should already be dead per our calculations, but Ultra Sarah pushed us to run a gaming session on her. That session saved her, Sarah said. She was heading to Deadsville, and I wasn't going to allow that to happen. What is a gaming session? Kay asked. Rawl answered. It is a caustic introduction of stenotarsin, a highly acidic, hypertrophic alkaloid developed from a type of fungus that plays Mary Kale with one's brain functions. Injecting it into the cerebellum is known as gaming up a subject, and the duration of its influence is known as a gaming session. Why? It sounds horrible. It is a radical step, Sarah agreed. but Kai was in desperate shape. Rawl's not joking about the insanity curve she was falling into. The gaming session forced her to concentrate on the dream she's having and not the horrible reality she's currently in. Kai is a tough bird. I know she'll be fine. Sarah, I was told that should I have questions, I should consult with Kai, Kay said. Who told you that? Sarah demanded. My contact in Kara Hill's store. She said Kai would have answers. Sarah rubbed her chin. A gamed-up patient's dreams are often hyperpsychic. That is not fully proved, Rawl said. Check your database, buddy. It's proved, Sarah replied. She might have much to tell us when she wakes up. If she wakes up, Rawl corrected. Kay was worried for Kai. Magistrate Kylos is a fighter. Has much to live for. Rawl, please use the materials I sent to you and revive her as soon as possible. Simply wash her in the water and then dust on a fine layer of ethelberry. Just a little goes a long way. And reattach her parts. You'll see instant results. If I could do it, you could do it. Rawl made notes. We will do what we can. And your knee countess, she is to remain in her capsule. Kay felt his heart tug a little. And Sam is in no danger? Not at present. Though I disapprove of the psychedelic and rather violent RDP Ultra Sarah has running for her. The knee countess is killing people in her RDP, even as we speak. Yeah, Raw, like the bore me to tears RDP you subjected her to wasn't punishment enough, Sarah retorted. Sam's having fun in the little wonderland I created for her. She's storming St. Vith Cathedral right now, kicking pirate butt. She thinks they've got you captured there in the cathedral, Kay, and she's tearing them apart to get to you. She just loves you to death, doesn't she? She's going to be thanking me when she wakes up. Kay jumped back in. Then she must remain where she is for now. Kai's need is greater, and we do not yet have Sam's stolen parts in any case. As you wish, Lord Blanchford, we will do our best, but I promise nothing. You understand that, correct? I do, thank you, Kay said. Now on to our next pressing topic. The Jodes have proved themselves to be a pack of unprincipled barbarians. They came at us in our home in full battle array. Battle units, GW, snipers, H Grenadier, the works. They also committed atrocities upon our staff. That is an unforgivable act by any measure. The effects of their hypnosis will not last more than a day or two. Oh, they did more than just that. They hypered them, Kay said. The staff are innocent people in our care who have been violated, mutilated, and I demand they be tended to at once. We've covered this ground before, Lord Blanchford. Aye, and we shall cover it again. You're fortunate that I'm not going to the sisters with this outrage. Since when does a Hospitaller sect kit out in full array against a League Great House and its servants? Rawl stirred. You know the reasoning. They are under Gome's influence. Introducing the sisters into this situation will result in the certain deaths of your countess and your friends. Sarah winked at him. You don't want to see me dead, right, Rawl? He offered a small laugh. No, Ultra Sarah, actually I don't. I look forward to the time when I may properly introduce myself to you in the flesh. He turned back to Kay. I warned you to be careful and to expect nothing less than their best effort, did I not? The Jones are under her sway and will treat you and your people with no mercy, and as you have seen, they're quite deadly. I hadn't thought it needed repeating. Attacking me and Laika is one thing, but extending the conflict to include our house staff is completely unacceptable. I demand the Hospitallers immediately tend to the medical needs of our staff and cleanse the castle of their wretched Horvath creeper plants while it's still relatively empty. I'd like Inez of Idari or Bethriel of Moan to supervise the process. They both may be reached via the Knickerbaum Sanctum in Min's. Rawl appeared conflicted. There are complications. Kay was ready to explode. Sarah waved him into silence and jumped in. Well, listen, Rawl. My uncle, Captain Davidge, and my aunt, Countess Sigillus, have gotten wind of the goings-on at the castle in their absence, and they are on their way back to Cana with a small armada in tow. They arrive and head on to Baz to blast the Jones to smithereens. The sisters are certainly going to get involved. Rawl rubbed his forehead. Oh, come on, Rawl, Sarah said. We talked about this earlier. We're out here putting our butts on the line. Help us out a little. Throw us something, will ya? Help our people. Laika protested. Laika does not recall Sarah there when Jones attacked. It was Jarl Khan and Laika who faced Jones, not Sarah. Yeah, but I was all worried and everything. I was there in spirit. Rawl relented. All right, Lord Branchford, I agree your request is not unreasonable. I'll make the arrangements at once. You needn't worry about your home or your staff. Tell Lord and Countess Blanchford not to intercede at this time. I'm thinking in the best interests of your knee countess. Rawl checked his screens and appeared troubled. Lord Blanchford, have you been exposed to the Horvath creeper? Yes, the Jodes left him over our castle. They robbed me of my gifts. Why? Because I'm reading from Ultra Sarah's Finducer information that you are infected with it. What? The Horvath creeper is, among other things, parasitic to those with gifts of the mind. Gifted brains such as yours are the perfect ground to germinate a creeper. Its spores embed themselves in your head by way of the maxillary sinus and go dormant until you encounter a sizable pool of fresh water. Thus infected, you will not be of your own sound mind. In the presence of calm water, the spores will activate and compel you to go into the water and drown yourself. Several weeks later, after feasting on your brain matter, the creeper will burst out of the water straight from your head. Kay sat there a moment, horrified. He felt sick to his stomach. Sounds terrible. Never fear, we have remedies to treat it. However, until you receive such treatment, you will want to avoid close proximity with shallow pools of fresh water. I'll make it a priority. You can count on it. You have Ultra Sarah and the High-Tath with you. Ensure they monitor your activities at all times. The immediate effects of the exposure to the creeper spores will last about a day, and then your gifts will return. Be advised, your gifts will behave erratically until the spores are extracted. Use them with caution. Excellent. Thank you for the advice, Kay said. Please let us know what Magistrate Kylo's status is once she has been made whole. Be bold and aggressive in her treatment, Rawl. Do not relent until she is restored, and do not waste the materials I have provided you. We are to Baz to pursue Queen Gome and take her into custody. Understood. Rawl out. Later, Sarah and Laika were having a heated argument. Let go of the controls, you six-breasted bitch! Sarah screamed. Laika was perched in the pilot's chair, was not budging. Laika hates Sarah, she roared. Laika ready to fly. This is my ship, and I'll be doing the flying. So get your big butt out of my chair, I'll shock the hell out of it. Laika clung to the chair for dear life. I'm gonna light you up, Sarah roared. You've got 10 seconds. Kay laughed to himself. What is going on? Your buddy's a pain in my rear, Sarah said. Kay, tell her to get out of my chair right now before I decide to get really nasty. Laika grit her teeth. Laika is going to enjoy wringing Sarah's neck. There will be no peace between Laika and Sarah until one is dead. Now you, Sarah, one moment please, Kay said. He took Laika's hand and helped her out of the pilot's chair. Laika quivered with rage and appeared to be ready to fight Sarah to the death, her hair fluffed up and frazzled. Laika, Sarah has been nice enough to let us fly in her ship. This is her vessel. Let her pilot it in peace, please. Laika turned a bright shade of red and hugged herself around the waist. Laika wanted to show Jarl Khan Laika could fly a ship. I'm certain Sarah will be nice enough to let you pilot the ship later. Right, Sarah? She's had no training. She never forgets anything she sees, Sarah. By now, she should be fully briefed on piloting this type of vessel. So you're going to let her pilot it later, right? Sarah thought about it and kicked at the floor with her holographic boot. Well, right. You can fly later after we're done at Baz. And don't bug me about it and don't piss me off until then. Great! Did you hear that, Laika? You can pilot the ship later on. Thanks, Sarah. See, it's not that hard to get along, is it? So, Sarah, what's our ETA to Baz? About 10.5 hours. 10 hours, 6 minutes, 23 seconds, Sarah, Laika corrected. Jarl Khan requires precise information. Whatever, Sarah replied. I've already got a nice quiet berth booked for the ship, which will give me plenty of range with the holo emitters and the Monty should we need 'em. Good thinking, Kay stretched. I'm going to lie down for a bit. Wake me up when we begin the landing sequence. He went into his cabin and sat down on the bed. He felt very tired and far away from Sam, slumbering in her capsule on HOBM. It had been a while since he'd had a proper sleep. He stretched out on the bed and quickly faded into dreams. The door to his cabin opened, and Laika padded in, bootless but still wearing her Carahil shirt. She pulled the shirt off, revealing her taut, six-breasted chest, and began the process for removing her armored pants. "Laika," Kay said, "I have to be firm. These encounters must end. I'm very fond of you, you know that. But I'm here questing for my countess, whom I love above all else." The pants fell to the floor. Laika stepped out of them and stood there nude. She climbed on top of him, allowing her to savor the heat of her body, her giant size swallowing him. 6 eager hands quickly undid his clothing and peeled it aside. "Laika, please," he said. She brought her head down close to his. "Love, Laika," she whispered. Her tongue wandered into his ear. "Love, Laika." "I cannot." She moved into him, reaching for his private places, trying to stimulate him into action. She kissed his cheek. "Laika, stop!" Kay pushed her away. "I said stop, and I mean it. Now go." She gazed at him for a moment, then climbed off and stood there nude, 6-armed, 6-breasted. He hadn't wanted to yell at her, and he didn't want to disappoint her either, but he could not violate his sacred trust to Sam. He thought he knew Laika well enough at this point that she would be bashful and hurt, quietly taking her things and sulking away to her cabin. But she didn't do that. Instead, she leaned down and whispered in a seductive voice, "Laika will just wait then, for Jarl Khan is always most eager for Laika when he sleeps. Jarl Khan will come to Laika when he's ready for love. And Laika will be waiting." She gave him a sweltering look and exited. Kay lay there on the borderlands, unsure if he was awake or asleep. He thought he heard Sarah's voice. "I'm gonna lock the door for you, Kay." And with that, we conclude Part 2, Chapter 10, Hyperstaff. That is a long chapter. I guess I violate a few rules of writing when I do my books, and you're supposed to have chapters that are kind of the same in length, have them all kind of the same length, but I don't do that. I write until I'm done. If the chapter needs to be longer, then it's longer. Some of my chapters are like a page long. A chapter is supposed to be an independent thought, an independent scene, and you conduct it, and then the chapter's over and you move on. So however long or short that is changeable, and this one was a long one. The next few aren't nearly as long. Some are only a couple pages. Yeah, so we see the staff had been hypered into a killing state, gunning for Kay. They mutilated themselves, and now they're awaiting Hospitower aid to repair them for those who need repairing, which is good. The Horvath Creeper, I came up with that a while back. I always was a big fan in my Fiend Folio book of the Yellow Musk Creeper. I always thought that was kind of cool, having someone taken over and controlled by a parasitic plant, and I always wanted to incorporate that into my works someplace. And Kay's gifts can be tough since he can see the future, and he can see all around through walls. He can see miles away, and he can turn himself invisible, and he can waft. He can fly while he's wafting. Kay's pretty tough. So he's a demure guy. He doesn't flaunt it. Humility is always an important quality, but he has a lot of superpowers, and sometimes it's a pain in the ass to give him a healthy dose of adventuring with all these gifts available to him. And so my solution was just to take them away from him for at least a little while with this Horvath Creeper. And then the parasitic part I incorporated in homage to the Yellow Musk Creeper, where it just takes your brain over and compels you to do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do. Like right now, if he sees a big body of water, he's probably going to jump in. So that's the Horvath Creeper. He is infected with it, and now we have to deal with that. So they're on their way to Baz. We will continue next week. This is getting to be a long video. Part 2, Chapter 11, Visitor in the Dark. And as I said, this one's only like 3 or 4 pages long, so I probably have to consolidate 2 chapters into one. Anywho, this is Ren Presents. I am your host, Ren. Peace out.